Let's continue with the part 4. He is not much different from most of my employees, said Rich Dad. I've met so many people who say, "Oh, I'm not interested in money." Yet they will work at a job for 8 hours a day. That's a denial of truth. If they weren't interested in money, then why are they working? That kind of thinking is probably more psychotic than a person who hoards money. As I sat there listening to my rich dad, my mind was flashing back to the countless times my own dad said, "I'm not interested in money." He said those words often. He also covered himself by always saying, "I work because I love my job." "So what do we do?" I asked. "Not work for money until all traces of fear and greed are gone?" "No, that would be a waste of time," said Rich Dad. "Emotions are what makes us humans, makes us real. The word emotion stands for energy in motion. Be truthful about your emotions and use your mind and emotions in your favor, not against yourself." "Whoa," said Mike. "Don't worry about what I had just said. It will make more sense in years to come. Just be an observer, not a reactor to your emotions." Most people do not know that their emotions that are doing the thinking. Your emotions are your emotions, but you have got to learn to do your own thinking. "Can you give me an example?" I asked. "Sure," replied Rich Dad. "When a person says, 'I need to find a job,' it's more likely an emotion doing the thinking. Fear of not having money generates that thought." "But people do need money if they have bills to pay," I said. "Sure they do," smiled Rich Dad. "All I'm saying is that it's fear that is all too often doing the thinking." "I don't understand," said Mike. "For example," said Rich Dad, "if the fear of not having enough money arises, instead of immediately running out to get a job so they can earn a few bucks to kill that fear, they instead might ask themselves this question: will a job be the best solution to this fear over the long run?" In my opinion, the answer is no, especially when you look over a person's lifetime. A job is really a short term solution to a long term problem. But my dad is always saying, "Stay in school, get good grades, so you can find a safe, secure job." I spoke out, somewhat confused. "Yes, I understand," he says that, said Rich Dad, smiling. "Most people recommend that. It's a good idea for most people, but people make that recommendation primarily out of fear." "You mean my dad says that because he's afraid?" "Yes," said Rich Dad. "He's terrified that he won't be able to earn money and won't fit into society." Don't get me wrong, he loves you and wants the best for you, and I think his fear is justified. And education and a job are important, but it won't handle the fear. You see, that same fear that makes him get up in the morning to earn a few bucks is the fear that is causing him to be a fanatical about you going to the school. "So what do you recommend?" I asked. "I want to teach you the to master the power of money, not be afraid of it. And they don't teach that in school. If you don't learn it, you become a slave to money." It was finally making sense. He did want us to widen our views, to see what Mrs. Martin could not see, his employees could not see, or my dad for that matter. He used examples that sounded cruel at the time, but I've never forgotten them. My vision widened that day, and I could begin to see the trap that lay ahead for most people. "You see, we are all employees ultimately. We just work at different levels," said Rich Dad. "I just want you boys to have a chance to avoid the trap caused by those two emotions, fear and desire. Use them in your favor, not against you. That's what I want to teach you. I'm not interested in just teaching you to make a pile of money that won't handle the fear of desire. If you don't first handle fear and desire and you get rich, you will only be a high paid slave. So, how do we avoid the trap? I asked. The main cause of poverty or financial struggle is fear and ignorance, not the economy or the government or the rich. It's self inflicted fear and ignorance that keeps people trapped. So, you boys go to school and get your college degrees. I will teach you how to stay out of the trap. The pieces of the puzzle were appearing. My highly educated dad had a great education and a great career, but school never told him how to handle money or his fears. It became clear that I could learn different and important things from two fathers. So, you have been talking about the fear of not having money. How does the desire of money affect our thinking? Mike asked. How did you feel when I tempted you with a pay raise? Did you notice your desires rising? We nodded our heads. By not giving in to your emotions, you are able to delay your emotion reactions and think. This is most important. We will always have emotions of fear and greed. From here on in, it is most important for you to use those emotions to your advantage and for the long term and not simply let your emotions run you by controlling your thinking. Most people use fear and greed against themselves. That's the start of ignorance. Most people live their lives chasing paychecks, pay raises, and job security because of the emotions of desire and fear, not really questioning whether those emotions driven thoughts are leading them. It's just like the picture of a donkey dragging a cart with its owner dangling a carrot just in front of the donkey's nose. The donkey's owner may be going wherever he wants to go, but the donkey is chasing an illusion. Tomorrow, there will only be another carrot for the donkey. You mean the moment I began to picture a new basketball glove, candy, and toys? That's like a carrot to a donkey? Mike asked. Yeah, and as you get older, your toys get more expensive. A new car, a boat, and a big house to impress your friends, said Rich Dad with a smile. Fear pushes you out the door, and desire calls to you, enticing you toward the rocks. That's the trap. So, what's the answer? Mike asked. What intensifies fear and desire is ignorance. That is why rich people with lots of money often have more fear the richer they get. Money is the carrot, the illusion. If the donkey could see the whole picture, it might rethink its choice to chase the carrot. Rich Dad went on to explain that the human's life is a struggle between ignorance and illumination. See, illumination means helping to clarify or explain something. He explained that once a person stops searching for information and knowledge of one's self and ignorance then sets in. That struggle is a moment to moment decision to learn to open or close one's mind. Look, school is very, very important. You go to school to learn a skill or profession so as to be contributing member of society. Every culture needs teachers, doctors, mechanics, artists, cooks, business people, officers, firefighters, soldiers. School train them so our culture can thrive and flourish, said Rich Dad. Unfortunately, for many people, school is the end, not the beginning. There was a long silence. Rich Dad was smiling. I did not comprehend everything he said that day. But, as with most great teachers whose words continue to teach for years, often long after they are gone, his words are still with me today. I've been a little cruel today, said Rich Dad. Cruel for a reason. I want you to always remember this talk. I want you to always think of Mrs. Martin. I want you to always think of the donkey. Never forget because your two emotions, fear and desire, can lead you into life's biggest trap. If you're not aware of them controlling your thinking, to spend your life living in fear, never exploring your dreams is cruel. To work hard for money, thinking that money will buy your things that will make you happy is also cruel. To wake up in the middle of the night, terrified about paying bills, is a horrible way to live. To live a life dictated by the size of a paycheck is not really a life. Thinking that a job will make you feel secure is lying to yourself. That's cruel, and that's the trap I want you to avoid. If possible, I have seen how money runs people's lives. Do not let that happen to you. Please don't let money run your life. A softball rolled under our table. Rich Dad picked it up and threw it back. So, what does ignorance have to do with greed and fear? I asked. Because it is ignorance about money that causes so much greed and so much fear, said Rich Dad. Let me give you some examples. A doctor wanting more money to better provide for his family raises his fees. By raising his fees, he makes healthcare more expensive for everyone. Now it hurts the poor people the most. So poor people have worse health than those with money because the doctors raise their rates, the attorneys raise their rates, because the attorneys raise their rates got gone up, school teachers now want a raise, which raises our taxes and on and on and on. Soon there will be such a horrifying gap between the rich and the poor that chaos will break out. And another great civilization will collapse. The great civilization collapsed when the gap between the haves and haves not was too great. America is on same course, proving once again that history repeats itself. Because we do not learn from history, we only memorize historical dates and names, not the lessons. Aren't prices supposed to go up? I asked. Not in an educated society with a well run government. Prices should actually come down. Of course, that is often only true in theory. Prices go up because of greed and fear caused by ignorance. If schools taught people about money, there would be more money and lower prices. But school focus only on teaching people to work for money, not how to harness money power. But don't we have business schools? Mike asked. Aren't you encouraging me to go to business school for my master's degree? Yes, said Rich Dad. But all too often, business schools train employees who are sophisticated bean counters. Heaven forbid a bean counter takes over a business. All they do is look at the numbers, fire people, and kill the business. I know because I hire bean counters. All they think about is cutting costs and raising prices, which cause more problems. Bean counting is important. I wish more people knew it, but it too is not the whole picture, said Rich Dad angrily. Here, the bean refers to the accounting. So, is there an answer? Asked Mike. Yes, said Rich Dad. Learn to use your emotions to think, who think with your emotions, and not to think with your emotions. I will repeat it again. Learn to use your emotions to think, not think with your emotions. When you boys mastered your emotions first by agreeing to work for free, I knew there was hope. When you again raised your emotions when I tempted you with more money, you were again learning to think in spite of being emotionally charged. That's the first step. Why is that step so important? I asked. Well, that's up to you to find out. If you want to learn, I will take you boys into a briar patch, that place where almost everyone else avoids. I will take you to that place where most people are afraid to go. If you go with me, you will let go of the idea of working for money and instead learn to have money work for you. And what will we get if we go with you? What if we agree to learn from you? What will we get? I asked. The same thing Brer Rabbit got, said Rich Dad. Freedom from the tar baby. Some additional information. The tar baby is a story. It is like a expression used to describe a sticky situation. It is a situation or a problem from which it is vitally or virtually it is impossible to disentangle oneself. Okay, let's continue. Is there a Brad patch? I asked. Yes, said Rich Dad. The Brad patch is our fear and our greed. Going into our fear and confronting our greed, our weakness, our neediness is a way out. And the way out is through the mind, by choosing our thoughts. Choosing our thoughts, Mike asked, puzzled. Yes, choosing what we think rather than reacting to our emotions. Instead of just getting up and going to work to solve your problems just because the fear of not having the money to pay your bills is scaring you, thinking would be taking the time to ask yourself a question. A question like, is working harder at this the best solution to this problem? Most people are so terrified at not telling themselves the truth that fear is in control, that they cannot think and instead run out the door. Tar baby is in control. That's what I mean by choosing your thoughts. And how do we do that? Mike asked. That's what I will be teaching you. I will be teaching you to have a choice of thoughts to consider rather than knee jerk reacting like gulping down your morning coffee and running out the door. Remember what I said before, a job is only a short term solution to a long term problem. Most people have only one solution or one problem in mind, and it's short term. It's the bill at the end of the month, the tar baby. Money now runs their lives, or should I say, the fear and ignorance about money. So they do as their parents did, get up every day and go to work for money. Not having the time to say, is there another way? Their emotions now control the thinking, not their heads. Can you tell the difference between emotions thinking and the head thinking? Mike asked. Oh, yes, I hear it all the time, said Rich Dad. I hear things like, well, everyone has to work, or the rich are crooks, or I will get another job, I deserve this raise. You can't push me around, or I like this job because it's secure. Instead of, is there something I'm missing here? Which breaks the emotional thought and gives you time to think clearly. I must admit, it was a great lesson to be getting, to know when someone was speaking out of emotions or out of clear thought. It was a lesson that served me well for life, especially when I was the one speaking out of reaction and not from clear thought. As we headed back to the store, Rich Dad explained that the rich really did make money. They did not work for it. He went on to explain that when Mike and I were casting 5 cents pieces out of lead, thinking we were making money, we were very close to thinking the way out the rich thing. The problem was that it was illegal for us to do it. It was legal for the government and banks to do it, but not us. He explained that there are legal ways to make money and illegal ways. Rich Dad went on to explain that the rich know that money is an illusion, truly like the carrot for the donkey. It's only out of fear and greed that the illusion of money is held together by billions of people thinking that money is real. Money is really made up of, it is really made up. The money is really made up. It was only because of the illusion of confidence and the ignorance of the masses that the house of cards stood standing. In fact, he said in many ways the donkey's carrot was more valuable than money. He talked about the gold standard that America was on, and that each dollar bill was actually a silver certificate. What concerned him was that the rumor that we would someday go off the gold standard and our dollars would no longer be silver certificates. When that happens, boys, all hell is going to break loose. The poor, the middle class, and the ignorant will have their lives ruined simply because they will continue to believe that money is real and that the company they work for or the government will look after them. We really did not understand what he was saying that day, but over the years it made more and more sense. Seeing what others miss as he climbed into his pickup truck outside of his little convenience store, he said, "Keep working, boys, but the sooner you forget about needing a paycheck, the easier your adult life will be. Keep using your brain, work for free, and as soon your mind will show you ways of making money far beyond that I could ever pay you. You will see things that other people never see, opportunities right in front of their noses. Most people never see these opportunities because they're looking for money and security. So that's all they get. The moment you see one opportunity, you will see them for the rest of your life. The moment you do that, I will teach you something else. Learn this and you will avoid one of the life's biggest traps. You will never touch that tar baby. Mike and I picked up our things from the store and waved goodbye to Mrs. Martin. We went back to the park to some picnic bench, to the same picnic bench, and spent several more hours thinking and talking. We spent the next week at school thinking and talking. For 2 more weeks, we kept thinking, talking, and working for free. At the end of the school, at the end of the Saturday, I was again saying goodbye to the Mrs. Martin and looking for at the comic book stand with the longing gaze. The hard thing about not even getting 30 cents every Saturday was that I didn't have any money to buy comic books. Suddenly, as Mrs. Martin was saying goodbye to the Mike and me, I saw something she was doing that I had never seen her do before. I mean, I had seen her do it, but I never took notice of it. Mrs. Martin was cutting the front page of the comic book in half. She was keeping the top half of the comic book cover and throwing the rest of the comic book into the large brown cardboard box. When I asked her what she did with the comic books, she said, "I throw them away. I give the top half to the cover back to the comic book distributor for the credit when he brings the new comics. He is coming in an hour." Mike and I waited for an hour. Soon the distributor arrived and I asked him if we could have the comic books, to which he replied, "You can have them if you work for this store and do not resell them." Our partnership was revived. Mike's mom had a spare room in the basement that no one used. We cleaned it and began piling open to the public. We hired Mike's younger sister, who loved to study, to be a head librarian. She charged each child 10 cents admission to the library, which was open from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. every day after school. The customers, the children of the neighborhood, could read as many comics as they could in 2 hours. It was a bargain for them since a comic cost 10 cents each and they could read 5 or 6 in 2 hours. Mike's sister could check the kids as they left to make sure they weren't borrowing any comic books. She also kept the books logging in how many kids showed up each day, who they were, and any comments they might have. Mike and I averaged $9.50 per week over 3 month period. We paid her sister $1 a week and allowed her to read the comics for free, which she rarely did since she was always studying. Mike and I kept our agreement by working in the store every Saturday and collecting all comic books from different stores. We kept our agreement to the distributor by not selling any comic books. We burned them once they got too tattered. We tried opening a branch office. We tried opening a branch office, but we could never quite find someone as dedicated as Mike's sister. we could trust. At an early age, we found out how hard it was to find good staff. 3 months after the library first opened, a fight broke out in the room. Some bullies from another neighborhood pushed their way in and started it. Mike's dad suggested we shut down the business. So our comic book business shut down, and we stopped working on Saturdays at the convenience store. Anyway, Rich Dad was excited because he had new things he wanted to teach us. He was happy because we had learned our first lesson so well. We had learned to have money work for us by not getting paid for our work at the store. We were forced to use our imaginations to identify an opportunity to make money. By starting our own business, the comic book library, we were in control of our own finances, not dependent on an employer. The best part was that our business generated money for us, even when we weren't physically there. Our money worked for us. Instead of paying us money, Rich Dad had given us so much more. So, this was the end of chapter 2. The chapter 3 will come in the next part of the video. Thanks for listening to the audiobook.